Yo, what's up guys, Nandra here, and welcome to another video. This video is going to be talking about alternative wincons, as well as just interacting as a whole. Now, what is an alternative wincon, you might ask? Well, this is stuff like say Seraph Lapis Glory Beam, or say, we don't actually have that many in this game actually, but PTP, and what's the last like relevant one? That's actually a good example. Satan deck, which is the Prince of Darkness Apocalypse deck. And the reason why I call them alternative wincons is because they don't necessarily, well, in the case of PTP and Satan, those ones do, but in the case of Seraph specifically, it doesn't actually care about your life total. It just has a "I win the game" clause, and not like the sense of "I win the game," such as I present to you an insurmountable question and I win the game, such as like say Ektar or Zell combo or anything like that. No, this one literally has a text: "You win the game." So, okay, actually, a very good idea that I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of just because the anime is so old is Yu-Gi-Oh! With Exodia. Exodia was the first I win clause in that game. But yeah, so this is a Reddit post that I got from a while ago. I don't remember where I found it. I really I want to say that this was like before I started making videos, and because usually at the time, something that I like to do personally is that even though I like dislike Reddit as a whole, I go there for what I call the 1%ers, and that's the 1% of people who have relevant things to say, as well as just like relevant threads and relevant comments in certain like salt threads, because usually, surprisingly, not all salt threads have people who are only salty in them. There's a usual back and forth of those who are irrationally salty, and the people who are irrationally sane and trying to calm down the people who are irrationally salty. Anyway, I don't remember what this thread was for, and it's gonna be difficult trying to search for it. So I'm just, yeah. So shout outs to you, Mr. Reddit guy or girl. I'm very, very sorry. I forgot to credit you because I couldn't. Alright, so I'm just gonna get out and read it. Alternative wincons are very healthy for the game. Whether the win condition is draining your opponent's library of cards, assembling a combo, changing and or meeting different victory conditions, or any other way of winning the game in a non-traditional manner. And what this means is, again, what I said, decks that don't adhere to the strict, okay, I'm gonna put your life points, your HP bar, or whatever to 0. Decks that go ahead and circumvent that completely. Alternative ways to win card games have been around for a very long time. Almost every successful CCG has them in some form in order to appeal to a wider variety of players who enjoy the style of play. Again, this is also true in Magic, especially. There are a ton of alternate win conditions, such as, for example, decks that win based on how much life you have, decks that win if you have exactly no cards in your deck, decks that win if you have 200 cards in your deck, etc. A lot of careful balance goes into the creation of alternative wincons. Many of these conditions require the player to juggle multiple actions at once. This is true because you have to be working to your win condition while also trying to stymie your opponent from beating your face in. Yes, you can make this argument for any deck in the game. However, with alternative win conditions, this is a little bit different, because it's a little bit different and kind of similar to combo in the sense that you usually have to require several pieces, and it's not by any means fast. It's usually one of the slower decks in the game, and yeah. Or to include usually subpar cards in their deck in order to facilitate their alternative strategy. Again, you can look at this at like Seraph. Now, granted, stuff like Healing Prayer and Hollow Dogma, they aren't necessarily bad, but they're not necessarily things that you would play in your average deck. Okay. These cards rarely win the game outright or by themselves. Oops, sorry. Rarely win the game outright or by themselves, instead requiring the player to protect a vulnerable resource, difficult, or to use multiple specific cards all at the same time, inconsistent. And again, you can see this with Seraph. Seraph requires the card itself. Then it also requires you to safely get the 4 countdown procs that they need for it to go off. Now, unlike other amulets in the game, this is a multi-tiered amulet, so you can't just be, oh, Hollow Dogma, I win. No, you have to have your Seraph go off 3 times. It'll go off 1 time naturally, just because of your turn count, but then you need 3 more activators for it, or you need 3 more turns to pass. And as we all know in games, sometimes your opponents won't let you get another turn. The aggro or mid-range players, on the other hand, simply have to use their easily designed on-curve creatures and hit their opponent enough times to facilitate their win. Now, I didn't like how you phrased this, but it is accurate to an extent. Generally, when you play aggro or mid-range, you generally have an easier idea of what you're trying to do, and you don't, and like this, and as far as like decisions go or whatever, it more or less just comes down to layering your threats correctly. And what I mean by this is that just straight up, just like playing around board wipes as best you can, while also using enough gas in order to strongly pressure your opponent and not give them that much time to breathe. And then also knowing when and how you should use your burst, because yes, sometimes as aggro you have to use your burst in order to survive games and not to win them. Okay. Both of these methods of victory are perfectly acceptable and viable. They are simply different, and depending on which route to victory any given player prefers. Again, this is what I alluded to earlier in my previous video, which is talking about playstyles, because there's a playstyle for everyone. You just need to find it. Alternative win conditions are typically the only effective means of a control or combo deck to end the game fairly. Again, this is true. Stuff like say Seraph, you don't have any other win con other than that Seraph going off. Or say stuff like PTP. Well, PTP is slightly different because PTP had a few different win cons, but generally most times you're relying on that PTP to get you that win. All right. An aggro or mid-range deck. An aggro or mid-range deck relies primarily on the strength of its creatures in order to carry them to a game win. This is true. When you play aggro and you play mid-range, what you thrive on is you thrive on repetitive damage from the same target. Like, for example, it's not unheard of for like an aggro or like a mid-range deck to have one creature stick on the board for multiple turns, just because like your opponent can't deal with your entire board, and so they have to like make some sacrifices and leave some things up. Like, for example, it's not uncommon for the card Quickblader versus Dragon, or specifically Ramp Dragon, for it to do 3 to 4 damage to you, just because you're gonna have like a difficult time clearing it up. Okay. Control and combo do not rely on creatures historically to carry them to win condition. Instead, these decks use their cards in disruptive ways, seeking to delay their opponent by destroying their creatures with spells and other disruptive cards, sometimes even creatures too. And this is true. Things like, say, Ancient Lion Spirit, Demis Decree, Ouroboros, what else? Sybil, Lurching Corpse, Necro Assassin, things like that. However, if a control or combo player is able to successfully do this and reach the stage of the game that their deck is most effective, then the player has done exactly what their deck was designed to do. And by this, what I'm taking away from this is that, for example, I know a lot of people bitch about Dragon and they bitch about how much healing Dragon has, but Dragon is, again, first and foremost a control deck. Well, at least a pseudo control deck, in that you take a lot of repetitive tempo losses in order to acquire your ramp, and you're gonna be fighting from behind a lot of the time. Again, just like a control deck. So naturally, it makes sense that once you get to late game as Dragon, that you're gonna be a fairly ridiculous class. Just because that's where you thrive. When the player has done exactly what their deck was designed to do, like an aggro deck that seeks to win during the early game, or a mid-range deck that seeks to win during the mid-game, a combo deck plays its game-winning cards in the late game. Again, this is true. There's a reason why whenever you see a combo deck of some sort, it usually costs, like, in this case, 10 or more mana. Like, for example, the combo of Genesis Ariette with Dread Sea Queen. That costs 27 mana. But what must the late game win condition look like? It cannot simply be a strong creature. Strong creatures are easily susceptible to cheap, effective removal. A good example of a bad failed win condition is what's it called? The Forest Legendary from last expansion. The one that was if I attack you directly, you lose the game because your HP goes to 0. That's an example of a bad one, because the card in and of itself has no protection and does not have the tools to get in safely, because without an Evo point, it's not doing anything on the board, and you just kind of presented hi, here's my generic Inferno Dragon, please kill me. Strong creatures are easily susceptible to cheap, effective removal, which defeats the entire purpose of a late game victory. This is true because, again, like I said, if you're like behind or at even, if you can like stay like that the entire game, then you'll win. But when you play like creature based alternative win conditions that don't have either some form of protection or some form of like getting in safely, that you're going to lose you're going to lose if your opponent has at least a half decent answer to it. A late game win condition must be able to end the game. A good example of a late game win condition in this game is Heavenly Aegis, just because at current point in time, there's only I think one card that can successfully deal with it sort of well, and that card is not a neutral card. So yeah, if a control/combo deck has been piloted to the late game stage, it should, having done its job, be able to quickly and consistently secure its victory. A good example of this is say Alana Haven, or say very, very late game Dragon, where you just kind of like loop Ouroboroses and you kind of like deny your opponent from doing anything. Or for example, pre-nerf, when Dragon had Lightning Blast at 10 mana, the whole cycle of just Lightning Blast Bahamut, and then Grimnir. Mad Cyclone. Anyway, Attempting to refute this by saying a win condition, by saying a win con should play by the same rules as an aggro mid-range deck undermines the purpose of a late game win condition. Again, this is true. Not every archetype is the same. The only thing that's the same about them is that they all use cards, and after that, not much else is really that different. You shouldn't try to not bastardize. You shouldn't try to conform archetypes to how you'd like to see them played, just because card games as a whole is a very long dynasty. There's been several, maybe thousands of card games in the last like 20-30 years. However, in particular, whenever we talk about like the big two, the big three, we usually talk about like Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh. And for the most part, if they've managed to do this for like 20 plus years, I'm pretty sure it's something that, you know, it works because it's tried and it's proven. Just like we expect a well-played aggro deck to be able to end the game early, a well-played control/combo deck should win the game late, regardless of whether it is the type of win condition the opposing player would prefer. Like, for example, late game dragon. Late game dragon usually does some very annoying things to people. I've had games where I've healed for like 20, 30 plus or something like that, and was it enjoyable for my opponent? Probably not, because there have been like a billion hate threads about the fact that why the fuck does Sybil have healing, or why does Aura have healing, and all that. And yeah, it might not be something that you enjoy. However, the person playing it enjoys it, and you need to be respectful. You need to be respectful of this. Again, you might not like it, but it's just one of those things that is. The method of how the win occurs is usually irrelevant, provided the criteria are met. Again, this is also true with most control decks. What happens is that I usually whittle you out of cards, and suddenly you're in top deck mode, but I have like a full hand. I can do whatever I want to you. A good example, well, I'm not gonna say a good example, but like, or not a good example in the sense of, oh, this is what you should adhere to do. No, a good example to kind of carry my point is in Hearthstone. In Hearthstone, generally their control decks kind of work more or less somewhat like grinder decks, in the sense that they don't have a very well defined win con, and usually it just comes down to, oh, they stick a creature that you can't kill after just like running you out of cards. That's not the best way to win a game, but it is a way to win a game. Remember, creature death is creature death, whether at the hands of spells, amulets, or other creatures. Interaction comes in many forms and is not limited solely to creatures, such as careful spell selection, spell timing, and resource management. Again, this is also true. I know a lot of times people will say that, oh, D-Shift is uninteractive, but they are interacting with you. There's a term in Magic called goldfishing, where you just kind of like, where you just sort of like scoop up all the cards that you have in your hand, you just like scoop up all the cards that you have, and more or less just like completely ignore what the opponent's doing. Like, as in, like, you just try to work to your combo and nothing else. There is interactivity in the sense that they are interacting with your creatures. It'd be a lot more scary if they just like ignored your creatures altogether, because yes, while you might not see this in Shadowverse, there are some decks and some games that completely just ignore whatever you're doing completely, and do not care at all. Like, for example, a good Dark World deck doesn't care what you're doing, just because it's going to draw like its entire deck, and then just like set up a very difficult for you to break board. Another good example of this is Splinter Twin. Splinter Twin is a well, I'm not gonna say it's an alt. It's a combo deck for Magic, and how you won this is that by turn 4, you would go ahead and you would make literally 1 million tokens and swing for game the next turn. Without sufficient CCG experience, many players assume that their cards rarely interact directly with spells, and thus no real interactions taking place. Again, he is correct in making that statement, and it is correct that that's an incorrect way to think that oh well, if he interacts with my spell, he's not interacting with me, or sorry, if he interacts with the spell and not with a creature, he's not interacting with me. A lot of people kind of get hung up on the whole on trading with creatures, just because generally when you see the game or whatever, most times that's usually how you like learn the game. It's not until you've played for a while that it's not until you've played several different games over the years that you kind of like learn that, okay, there's different forms of interaction, and I do talk about this a little bit in my mid-range shadow video that I should have uploaded earlier, and that while yes, you want your opponent to interact with creatures, you have to accept that sometimes that they're just going to interact with your creatures with spells. No matter what you play, something your opponent is going to do is in some way going to disrupt your plan. This is a form of interaction, and is the point of all competitive play. You must either learn to play around it, accept it, or move on to the next game. This is true as well. Things like Sybil, things like, say, Scarlet Sabror, those are giant, or hell, even things like wards. Those are all massive roadblocks to your goal to victory. It's not always going to be, oh hey, my opponent didn't have anything, I win, just because that's not how games work. Or at least, sorry, that's not how a game of cards works when you're playing someone who didn't brick and is actually a good player. Finally, there is the subject of preferred playstyle. Control and combo decks are archetype styles of play that certain types of players enjoy, prefer, and often gravitate towards. Almost every CCG seeks to appease each type of player, as it is important to the health and success of the game. Again, as I mentioned before in my playstyles video, there's a delicate ecosystem in which you need to have aggro, combo, control, mid-range, and even to some extent grinder decks all coexist peacefully, just because each archetype serves as a counterbalance to the next, sort of like in the government hierarchy or whatever, where we have 3 different branches of government, and they all kind of unite to form like checks against each other. Some players prefer using creatures to win. Some other players prefer using spells, and other players prefer to assemble their doomsday machine. This is true because, again, not everyone thinks the same. People think differently, and people have different things that they like. This is why it's important not to bash any players or any decks just because they think differently than you. For example, I see a lot. Well, all right. So I already talked about this. Well, again, like mentioned it again, I do see a lot of people that go ahead and say, well, this archetype is shit because I don't like it, and that's not the way to look at it. You could have just said I don't like it, full stop, or you could have just said I don't like it because of how it plays out. There's no reason to just go ahead and just rag on the archetype just because you don't like it for whatever reason. Like, your reason for not liking it can be valid, can be invalid. I don't care, but there's absolutely no justification for you to go ahead and bash an archetype. Yeah. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. I guess you can kind of like call this a part 2 to try for my playstyle thing. And yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.